the usher had to come down and they had to put the lights on and say, put off your cell phones. We are so involved with staying in contact, with doing things, as opposed to just thinking. Thinking is very, very underrated. I mean, real thinking. And you find that we can really do a lot in a short period of time if we focus on just having fun and thinking. So sit in a room and think for 30 minutes at a time. You'll sit there and you say, well, what am I going to think about? And when you think about thinking, you're not going to be successful. But it takes a little training sometimes. Number 17, think analog. Think analog means pick up a pencil, pick up a marker, turn off the computer. Write, draw. When you have an idea, do those things. The connection between the hand and the pencil and the paper is a very, very organic one. There's something about this creative process of putting pen to paper that for hundreds, literally thousands of years have connected people with ideas in a physical way. And you find that the difference between doing something on a computer and doing something manually, there's a human connection that goes on there. So don't be afraid to do those things. And I know a lot of people say, well, gee, I'm not good at drawing. I can't draw. But the fact is, most people, if you leave yourself open to the idea of drawing, can be taught within 30 minutes to have a certain level of the ability to draw. And I could teach any one of you in this room to draw in 30 minutes if you open your mind to it. Now, will you be a Picasso? Of course, if you've seen the way Picasso paints, you probably could say, sure, I could be a Picasso. But he didn't start out that way. He was a very technical artist. But you could do that if you keep your mind open. But writing is critical too. Don't be afraid to write. And sometimes writing by hand is important because you think about it. We don't think that it is, but you remember, a lot of the great books were written either on typewriters, one peck at a time, but a lot of them were written longhand. So think about that when you do those things as well. Number 18, engage in risky behavior. Now, I don't mean, jump off the top of a 4-story building into a dumpster to see what the experience is like. That's not the kind of risky behavior I'm talking about here. But rather what I'm talking about is thinking about risky behavior, meaning, we could do a product this way. We could try this. We could develop this. And remember when I said before, embrace the idea of no. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to learn something new from that failure that leads you to that answer. So, risky behavior? Sure. Absolutely. There are companies that reward innovation and give awards out, not for how successful people are in what they try, but how innovative they are in the ideas they try to apply, whether they succeed or fail. Because they know these people will not always fail. And more than likely, if they are risk takers, they will have a higher degree of success because intuitively, subconsciously, they'll have a better connection with what the idea is, how they're trying to solve it by doing those things. So again, risky behavior, yes. But always remember, you've got to have it built in context for what you're trying to accomplish. Number 19, I always say that when you do these kind of things, you need to play by the rules. So how can you have risky behavior by the rules? Well, here's what I mean by that. It means that when you do that, you have to then justify why this behavior has some kind of meaning to it, why the solution you come up with. And that is by supporting your opinion with reasoned thoughts. You have to have some kind of context to place it in. You need informed judgment. So you need to feel comfortable that you have an understanding not only of what this risky behavior is intended to do, but why it's not a complete waste, why there is value in attempting this risky behavior. And lastly, thorough explanation. Because at some point, unless you're going to do it all by yourself and never talk to anybody, you're going to have to explain to people. You're going to have to justify it. If you're starting a company and you go talking about something, say, I want $1.5 million of venture capital. Or if you have an advertising client and say, we're going to spend $10 million on media. They're going to need an explanation why, especially if they consider what you're doing risky behavior. So remember that a certain amount of justification is important for a variety of reasons. And also, you've got to convince yourself that what your idea is right. So keep those things in mind. The next thing is develop a personal philosophy. Very often, when people try to start businesses, come up with what they want to do in life, what their life mission is, they have difficulty. They say, I'll try this, I'll try that, I don't know what I really want to do. That's because they really don't know what they are all about, what their view of the world is. If they're starting a company, they don't say, gee, am I interested in bringing technology to the world to improve it? Am I a humanitarian in what I'm trying to do? Or do I just want to make a lot of money fast? All three are perfectly legitimate. But those are important things to understand when you go into business, when you have any type of career. What's your personal philosophy? I like to use these three elements as a way of encouraging people to think about developing a personal philosophy. The circle, the square, and the triangle don't represent anything than geometric shapes. But what I say to people, and students also, is take each one of those and define them in your own terms about what they mean in your life. So for example, does a circle mean the continuity of ideas? Does the square mean contained ideas? Or does it mean balanced and even and consistent? And then based on your evaluation of these, develop your personal philosophy and then say, which one of those am I? Now, once you think you know that, go to a couple of family members and go to some of your friends. And don't tell them what you think you are, but ask them what they think you are and see how close you are. Very often, we see ourselves one way, and other people see us in a different way. And the closer we can get to them thinking that we are the same person that we think we are, the better explanation, the better communication, and the better connection we'll have with them. And then that'll flow to things like business and creativity and all the things that we do in life. So having a personal philosophy is an important one. Here's something that we're seeing very much happening in business today, and the internet is a big part of it. It's called niche-ification. Of course, before the internet, things went out and were advertised in the media to a broad audience. Now we have this ability on the web to be very, very focused and targeted. And so what we're finding is that there are social groups, subcultures, and when we say subcultures, we mean people who are interested in certain products, ways of thinking, where you can market services, products, networks, social networks, all to them. So what we're seeing is not big ideas that go to everybody, but big ideas that can go to small groups and then be accepted throughout a culture and become bigger. Number 22, American Idol. How many people watch American Idol like I have? Look at that, huh? Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's okay to watch American Idol. Everybody thinks of American Idol as this big singing competition, right? We're looking for a singer. I look at it differently. I look at it as a branding competition. If people are brands, and we want to have a human relationship, and we think about it that way, then every week the product is repackaged, represented, reevaluated. And if you think of those voters every week as purchasers, then you can see how products succeed or fail from week to week. Just as companies and businesses and products come and go on a weekly basis. This is a microcosm of that. This is where the consumer gets to be the determinant of how the company does every week. Does that Mary brand, does that Tom brand, does that Dave brand work every week? Is that offering up to the market what they want? And that's why people watch and enjoy it so much, because they get to control the brand. Write. I mentioned about writing before. The idea of writing for pleasure and interest is something that we don't do. We get on the computer, we write things, why? For grades, to communicate, emails. Writing requires a couple of things, one of which is good grammar if people are going to read it and understand it. It's not like text messaging where we can use a lot of shorthands and numbers. So I highly encourage you to write. It takes thought. So if you can sit for 30 minutes in a room and think and write, you could be pretty dangerous if you've got some good ideas. Keep that in mind very much. And I want to talk to you for a minute about something that's called user innovation, or it's also called crowdsourcing. If people own brands, think about people being the research and development, the sales, and the marketing part of a company. Well, that's what's happening with something that's called user innovation. That's where social communities and networks that are part of a base of brand lovers or brand supporters for a brand actually are brought into the process of developing things. There's a brand that was named the most innovative small company in America called Threadless. And what's ironic about them is that they have taken this whole idea of user innovation and made it the basis of their business. And they've done it selling t-shirts, one of the lowest tech things that you can buy and make. And what they do is they take all of this community that they have and they say, submit design ideas for the t-shirts. Then the entire community gets to vote on which ones they think are the best. The winners, the 2 or 3, are then produced and offered for sale. They've never had a problem selling the products, and in most cases, they always sell out because they've already tested the idea with the market. They've been validated for that.